Hi, my name is Lily Johnson, and I'm 25 years old. I've always known I was the invisible child in my family. My older sister, Sophia, who's 28, was the golden child, and my parents made sure she got everything she ever wanted. Me? I was the afterthought, the one they expected to quietly clean up the messes and fade into the background. But this story isn't about how I was ignored. It's about what happened when my grandparents passed away and left behind a will that no one in my family saw coming. It all started on a cold morning in May. I sat in the lawyer's office, feeling out of place in my simple dress and flats. Sophia walked in wearing designer heels and her usual air of confidence. My parents followed close behind, whispering to each other, their faces full of certainty. They were so sure that Sophia was about to inherit everything: our grandparents' house, their savings, even their small vacation cabin upstate. After all, she was their favorite. The lawyer, a tall man in his late 50s named Mr. Edwards, greeted us and asked us to take our seats. I could barely look at anyone. My grandparents had passed away just a month earlier, and I was still heartbroken. They were the only ones who ever made me feel seen and valued. "I'll now read the will," Mr. Edwards said, his voice calm but firm. The room went silent. Sophia sat back, crossing her arms with a smug smile. My parents leaned forward eagerly, waiting for the confirmation of what they believed would happen. "As per the wishes of John and Martha Johnson," Mr. Edwards began, "their assets will be divided as follows." I braced myself for the inevitable, Sophia getting everything and me being left with nothing. But then something unexpected happened. "To my granddaughter Lily," Mr. Edwards continued, "we leave the family estate, including the main house, the vacation cabin, and a trust fund of $500,000. I blinked, convinced I'd misheard him. Sophia gasped, her chair scraping against the floor as she shot up. "What?" she yelled. "That can't be right." The lawyer paused, unbothered by her outburst. "To my granddaughter Sophia, we leave a sum of $50,000. Sophia's face turned red. "This is a mistake. I was supposed to get the house. I was supposed to get everything." Mr. Edwards raised a hand to silence her. "If you'll allow me to finish, the will also includes a statement from John and Martha Johnson. They wrote, and I quote, 'We have chosen to leave the majority of our assets to Lily, as we have witnessed her kindness, resilience, and independence, despite the challenges she faced within this family.'" My jaw dropped. My parents exchanged horrified looks, and Sophia looked like she was about to explode. "Challenges?" Sophia snapped, glaring at me. "She's done nothing for this family. This is so unfair." I didn't know what to say. For once, I wasn't invisible. My grandparents had seen me, really seen me, and they'd chosen to reward me for it. But I had no idea the storm that was about to follow. Sophia's voice grew louder with each word. "This is a joke, right? There's no way she deserves this. She doesn't even know how to handle a house, let alone all that money." I felt my cheeks flush, but before I could respond, Mr. Edwards cleared his throat. "Miss Johnson, I must remind you that this will was written and signed with full legal oversight. There is no mistake here." My parents jumped in next. "This doesn't make sense," my dad, Mark, said, his tone sharp. "Sophia has always been the responsible one." Surely my parents knew that. Mr. Edwards raised an eyebrow. "Actually, Mr. Johnson, your parents were very clear in their wishes. They were aware of certain events that influenced their decision." He opened a separate folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "In fact, they left behind documentation of those events." Sophia froze, and my mom, Patricia, leaned forward, her face pale.
"What do you mean by that?"
Mr. Edwards hesitated, then said, "I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to disclose the details unless Miss Lily chooses to contest the will. However, I can assure you that your parents carefully considered everything before making this decision." The room went silent for a moment, the air thick with tension. Then Sophia slammed her hand on the table. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "Lily, you don't even care about this family. You don't deserve a penny of that money." I opened my mouth to defend myself, but my mom cut me off. "Sophia's right," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "Lily, if you had any decency, you'd share this with your sister. You know how much she's sacrificed for this family." "Sacrificed?" I repeated, finally finding my voice. "You mean how she got everything handed to her while I was left to fend for myself? Grandma and Grandpa knew what they were doing. Maybe you should ask yourselves why they didn't trust you or Sophia." Sophia lunged toward me, but my dad grabbed her arm. "Enough," he said, though his tone wasn't comforting, it was cold. "This isn't over, Lily. We'll find a way to challenge this." Later that evening, I returned to the house I'd grown up in. It felt strange knowing it was now mine, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Sophia and my parents weren't going to let this go, and I knew it. Sure enough, an hour after I got home, they barged in. My dad was holding a stack of papers, and my mom looked like she'd been crying. "We need to talk," my dad said, his voice firm. I crossed my arms. "About what?" "The fact that Grandma and Grandpa saw through your schemes." My mom gasped. "How dare you speak to us like that? We're your parents." I stepped back, my voice steady. "And you've treated me like I'm nothing my whole life. Don't act surprised that they noticed." Sophia rolled her eyes and flopped onto the couch. "Spare us the pity party, Lily. You got lucky, that's all. But you're not going to keep it." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. Sophia smirked. "Oh, you'll see." The next morning, I received a call from Mr. Edwards. "Lily, I thought you should know that your sister and parents have contacted another lawyer to contest the will. They've also been trying to access the estate documents."
My heart sank.
"Can they do that?" "Not legally," he replied. "But I recommend keeping a close eye on your belongings and the property. Your grandparents anticipated this and took precautions, but you need to be vigilant." That evening, I decided to go through the documents my grandparents had left me. Among the papers was a sealed letter addressed to me. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dear Lily, if you're reading this, it means we're no longer there to protect you from the unfairness of this family. We know how hard it's been for you, and we wanted to make sure you have the life you deserve. Be careful, Lily. We know your parents and sister may try to take what we've left you. But remember, you have the strength to stand up to them. Trust yourself, and don't let them bully you into giving up what is rightfully yours." Tears filled my eyes as I read their words. My grandparents had always been my safe haven, and even now, they were looking out for me. I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let anyone take away what they'd left for me. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of loud banging on the front door. My heart raced as I peeked through the window. It was my parents and Sophia, with a moving truck parked on the street. "What is this?" I asked, opening the door but keeping the chain lock on.
My dad glared at me.
"We're moving in." My jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" "This house belongs to the family," my mom said, her voice laced with fake sweetness. "You can't keep it all to yourself. It's too big for one person, and we're your parents. We deserve to stay here." I tightened my grip on the door. "This house is mine now. Grandma and Grandpa left it to me, and I'm not letting you or anyone else take that away." Sophia stepped forward, her arms crossed. "Stop being selfish, Lily. You don't even know how to take care of a house like this. Just let us handle everything. We'll make sure it's taken care of properly." I shook my head, anger bubbling in my chest.
"No."
"If you want to live here, you can go through the courts. Until then, stay out." My dad slammed his fist on the doorframe. "Don't push us, Lily. You don't want to make this harder than it needs to be." Before I could respond, I heard a neighbor shout from across the street. "I'm calling the cops if you don't leave her alone." My parents turned and glared at the older man standing on his porch with a phone in his hand. Defeated, they stormed back to their car, but not before Sophia hissed, "This isn't over." True to their word, my parents and Sophia filed a lawsuit to contest the will. I spent weeks meeting with lawyers, providing evidence, and defending my grandparents' wishes. Sophia painted herself as the victim, claiming I had manipulated our grandparents into favoring me. She was always so clingy with them, she told the court. They were too old to see through her games. But my lawyer, Mr. Edwards, was prepared. He presented the documents my grandparents had left behind, including evidence of their careful planning and their awareness of my parents' and Sophia's selfish behavior. The final nail in the coffin was a recording my grandparents had secretly made during a family dinner. In it, my parents could be heard pressuring my grandparents to change the will, saying things like, "Lily doesn't need anything. She doesn't even care about the family legacy. Sophia is the one who will make us proud." When the recording played in court, my parents' faces turned pale, and Sophia slumped in her chair. The judge ruled in my favor. The will was upheld, and my parents and Sophia were ordered to stay away from the property unless I gave explicit permission for them to visit. They were also fined for filing a frivolous lawsuit. Sophia's meltdown outside the courthouse was the talk of the day. She screamed at reporters, calling me a thief and accusing the court of being biased. "This isn't fair," she shouted, her voice cracking. "I deserve everything, not her." But no one cared. Her tantrum only made her look worse. A week later, I received an anonymous tip from someone who had seen Sophia sneaking around the property at night. I checked the security cameras my grandparents had installed, and sure enough, there she was, trying to pry open a window. I called the police, and they caught her red-handed. Sophia was arrested for trespassing and attempting to break into the house. When confronted, she broke down and admitted she was desperate. "I just wanted what was mine," she sobbed.
But the law didn't see it that way.
She was charged and sentenced to community service, along with mandatory counseling. In the months that followed, I made the house my own. I renovated the rooms, turning the space into something that reflected my personality and dreams. I started a small business from home, using part of the trust fund to invest in my future. My parents and Sophia stayed distant, though I occasionally heard from mutual acquaintances about their struggles. My parents had to sell their home to pay off debts, and Sophia lost her job due to her reputation. As for me, I finally found peace. My grandparents' words stayed with me: "Trust yourself, and don't let them bully you." I had done just that, and now I was stronger than ever.